Thank you. I looked in the dictionary for the word fidelity, and it had two words, Lonnie Ali. In 1967, 9 months prior to his assassination and martyrdom, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was interviewed by Merv Griffin on the Merv Griffin Show. Merv Griffin asked Dr. King a relevant question. He said, Dr. King, what has been the greatest effect and impact that the civil rights struggle has had on the Negro? Dr. King paused and said, besides the dismantling of barriers that prohibited the Negro from free access, the greatest and the most profound effect that the civil rights struggle had was that it infused in the Negro something that the Negro needed all along. And that was a sense of somebodyness. You will never be able to appreciate what Dr. King meant when he said the Negro needed a sense of somebodyness until you understand the 350 years of nobodyness that was infused into the psyche of people of color. Every sacred document in our history, every hallowed institution conspired to convince the African in America that when God made the African, that God was guilty of creative malfeasance. All of our sacrosanct documents from the Constitution said to the Negro that you're nobody. The Constitution said that we were 3/5 of a person. Decisions by the Supreme Court, like the Dred Scott decision, said to the Negro, to the African, that you had no rights that whites were bound to respect. And even Francis Scott Key, in his writing of the Star-Spangled Banner, we sang verse 1, but in verse 3, he celebrates slavery by saying, no refuge can save the hireling and slave from the sorrow of night or the death of the grave. Every institution, from religion to entertainment, from Amos and Andy to Jane and Tarzan, infused in the psyche of the Negro that he was inferior. But something happened to the Depression generation and the World War II generation of African Americans. Jackie Robinson picked up his bat and hit a ball, and the Brooklyn Dodgers win the pennant. Joe Louis dismantles the pride of Aryan supremacy by knocking out Max Melling in 124 seconds. Jesse Lewis runs in ambulatory speed and wins 4 gold medals. Rosa Parks sits down on a bus in Montgomery in December of 1955, and a young seminary student from Boston University stands up and takes the complex ideas of Niebuhr and Tillich and dips it in chocolate so Big Mama can understand it. And then from Louisville, emerged a silver-tongued poet who took the ethos of somebodyness to unheard of heights. Before James Brown said, I'm black and I'm proud, Muhammad Ali said, "I'm black and I'm pretty." Black and pretty was an oxymoron. Blacks did not say pretty. The first black millionaire in this country was not Oprah, but it was Madam C.J. Walker, who made products in order to help black people escape their Africanity. But Muhammad Ali said, "I'm proud, I'm pretty, I'm glad of who I am." And when he said that, that infused in Africans a sense of somebodyness. To extrapolate Muhammad Ali from the times in which he lives is what's called historic presentism. It is to talk about George Washington and not talk about the American Revolution. It's to talk about Abraham Lincoln and not talk about the Civil War. It's to talk about Franklin Delano Roosevelt and not talk about the Depression and World War II. Our brother Muhammad Ali was a product of a difficult time, and he dared to love black people at a time when black people had a problem loving themselves. He dared to affirm the beauty of blackness. He dared to affirm the power and the capacity of African Americans. He dared to love America's most unloved race. And he loved us all. And we loved him because we knew he loved us. He loved us all. Whether you lived in the suburbs or whether you lived in the slums, whether you lived on the avenue or whether you lived in an alley, whether you came from the penthouse or whether you lived in the projects, whether you came from Morehouse or whether you had no house, whether you were high yellow or boot black, Muhammad Ali loved you. Our city is known for two things. It is known for Muhammad Ali. It is known for the Kentucky Derby. We hope you will come back and visit our city the first Saturday in May. We hope you will place a bet on one of the horses. But if you do, please know the rules. What will happen is the horses will start off in the starting gate, and then the signal will be given. They will run in the mud for 2 minutes, and the winner will then be led to the winner's circle where a wreath of roses will be placed around the horse's neck. We want you to make a bet, but please know the rules. You cannot bet for the horse once it's in the winner's circle. You have to bet for the horse while it's still in the mud. And there are a lot of people who will bet and have bet on Muhammad Ali when he was in the winner's circle. But the masses bet on him while he was still in the mud. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar stood with him when he was in the mud. Jim Brown stood with him when he was in the mud. Bill Russell stood with him when he was in the mud. Howard Cosell stood with him when he was in the mud. Now, please don't mishear me. I am not saying that Muhammad Ali is the property of black people. He is the property of all people. But while he is the property of all people, let us never forget that he is the product of black people in their struggle to be free. I went looking for Jesus on a poor West End street, thinking that I would find him as he walked around with men and women with stumbling feet. People who had their heads bowed low because they were broke and had nowhere to go. But then I went looking for Jesus way in the sky, thinking he would wear a robe that would dazzle my eye. When suddenly Jesus came walking by with stumbling feet because he'd been hanging with the poor on a West End street. The Muhammad Ali of my childhood had a shuffle, but as he grew older, he walked with shuffling feet. And I would submit to you that he walked with shuffling feet not because of Parkinson's disease, but he walked with shuffling feet because he hung out with the folk in West Louisville who had shuffling feet. Peace and God bless you.